Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the New York Jets at the Buffalo Bills in their Week 17 matchup played January 3rd, 2015, the final game of the regular season, and the Jets needing to win to get into the postseason. And Ryan Fitzpatrick turned out to be who we thought he was and who we've been telling you he was all season long, and he really screwed this game up for New York. But we're going to go over every possession, and we're going to go over the stats and give our breakdown and analysis for this game. So Rex Ryan against his former team. And to start things off, the Jets would get the ball first, and they would be held to a 3-and-out on their first possession as they would punt the ball to Buffalo. Buffalo would also go 3-and-out on their first possession as we start off with a lot of defense early on in the first quarter. And the Jets would punt the ball for the second time after 5 plays on their second possession, and then the Bills went 3-and-out for the second consecutive possession to start this game, and then the Jets would punt for the third time after their second 3-and-out out of their first 3 possessions. So now Buffalo would take over after the punt on the New York 25, so they had nice field position after the punt by New York, which was set up in large part due to a sack by Mario Williams on 3rd and 15 before the Jets punted from their own 4. But now, with Buffalo taken over in New York territory, they would be faced with a 3rd and 3 from the New York 18, and Tyrod Taylor, T-Mobile, takes it in himself, an 18-yard touchdown run, and with the extra point by Dan Carpenter, it was 7-0 Buffalo over New York, and this was with a little less than 6 minutes still left in the first quarter. So now New York would get the ball, and they would go 3-and-out for the third time out of 4 possessions here in the first quarter, as Buffalo's defense was just shutting them down. So now Buffalo would take over after the punt on their own 30 with a little over 4 minutes still left in the first. They brought the ball up to midfield and into New York territory as they brought the first quarter to a close. They would open up the second quarter on the verge of the red zone. They got into the red zone, and then on 3rd and 4 from the 5, Taylor goes to Williams. He picks up 3 yards, and they're just 1 yard shy of the first down. So now that would bring up 4th and 1 on the 2-yard line. Instead of settling for 3, they go for it, and Williams scores on a touchdown, a 2-yard touchdown run by Carlos Williams. And with the extra point, it was no good, and so it was 13-0 with Williams scoring with just about 13 minutes left before halftime. Williams would end up leaving this game, though, due to injury. But the Jets now would take over after the touchdown, and after the kickoff, it was a touchback, so they had it on their own 20. But on the first play of this possession, Chris Ivory runs 58 yards all the way across midfield into Buffalo territory on the very edge of the red zone at the Buffalo 22. But that's where their drive would stall, as Fitzpatrick threw 3 incomplete passes, and so out came Randy Bullock to attempt a 40-yard field goal, but it was no good. So it remained 13-0 with about 12 minutes left before halftime. Buffalo would be held to a 3-and-out on their next possession, and the Jets would get the ball back on their own 40 after the punt. And on the first play of this possession, Fitzpatrick goes to Brandon Marshall. He picks up 41 yards, and now it's a first down in the red zone at the Buffalo 19 for the Jets. Fitzpatrick went to Ridley, picked up 2 yards, and on 2nd and 8 from the 17, Ryan Fitzpatrick goes to Brandon Marshall for a 17-yard touchdown. Bullock adds the extra point, and that put the first points on the scoreboard for the Jets, as it was now a 6-point lead for Buffalo with the score Buffalo 13, New York 7, with about 9.5 minutes still left in the first half. So now Buffalo would take over on their own 28 after the kickoff, and they got the ball up to midfield and into Jets territory. They got into the red zone all the way down to the 8-yard line, but a false start would push them back, and then they lost 4 on the first and goal from the 13 to push them back to the 17, and on third and goal from the 13, Tyrod Taylor picks up 11 yards on the ground, but it wasn't enough for the touchdown, obviously. It was third and goal, so now, without a chance of getting a first down, fourth and goal from the 2, this time the Bills elect to go for the field goal, whereas earlier they had scored a touchdown on a 4th and 1 from the 2, but now Carpenter would hit the 20-yard field goal, and that would put the Jets up 16-7 with less than half a minute left before halftime, and the Jets would bring the first half to a close with a 7-yard run by Ivory. So 16-7 at the half. A close game, a 9-point game at halftime. Buffalo in control early on, playing really good defense in the first half. And to start things out, though, the Bills would get the ball first in the second half, and on 2nd and 9 from the 26, Gillespie was hit and he fumbles the ball. Harrison forces the fumble and Darrelle Revis comes up with it. So Revis recovers the fumble, and now the Jets were already in field goal range as they had the ball on the Buffalo 23. They weren't really able to get much going as they only gained 2 yards on the possession, but Randy Bullock came out to attempt a 39-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was now a 6-point game with the score Buffalo 16, New York 10, with about 13 and a half minutes still left in the third. So now Buffalo would take over on their own 15 after the kickoff, and they would end up moving the ball up to midfield. Of course, penalties would push them back, but then on 1st and 20 from the 30, Tyrod Taylor goes to Sammy Watkins. He picks up 38 yards and a first down in New York territory at the 32. They would then be faced with a 4th and 6 on the Jets' 28, and they elected to go for it. Tyrod Taylor goes to Sammy Watkins. He picked up 8 yards and a first down on the edge of the red zone at the 20, but their drive would end up stalling as Tyrod Taylor was sacked on 3rd and 9, and out would come Dan Carpenter to attempt a 37-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was back to a 9-point lead for the Bills with the score 19-10, Buffalo over New York. So now the Jets would take over after the kickoff on their own 23 with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter. They moved the ball up towards midfield, and on 2nd and 5 from the 38, Fitzpatrick hit Marshall for a 16-yard pass that brought the ball into Buffalo territory at the 46. Then on 3rd and 5 from the 41, Fitzpatrick went to Decker. He picked up 5 and a first down at the 36 of Buffalo as they continue to move closer towards scoring range. And then on 3rd and 10 from the 21, Ryan Fitzpatrick hits Eric Decker for a 21-yard touchdown. Bullock adds the extra point, and now it's a 2-point game with the score Buffalo 19, New York 17, with just over a minute left in the third. So now Buffalo would take over and bring the third quarter to a close. But on 3rd and 2, on the final play of the third quarter, Tyrod Taylor was sacked by Harris, and that brought the third quarter to a close as the Bills would go 3 and out on this possession and punt on the first play of the fourth quarter. So now it's a 2-point game. It's down to the final quarter. If the Jets lose this game, they're done for the season and not making the postseason. And on their first possession of the fourth quarter, they would take over after the punt on their own 28. They moved into Buffalo territory after moving the ball to midfield, and they would get down into the red zone all the way down to the 14-yard line. And on 2nd and 10 from the Buffalo 14, Ryan Fitzpatrick drops back and he's intercepted by McClevin. So an interception in the fourth quarter in crunch time. Fitzpatrick intercepted. So now Buffalo would take over on their own 20. They marched down the field. They had a 3rd and 7 from the 23 where Taylor went to Silas and he picked up 20 yards to make it a first down at the 43. Then on 3rd and 8 from the 45, Taylor went to Watkins. He picked up 14 yards and a first down at Jets territory at the 41. Then on a 3rd and 4 from the Jets 35, Tyrod Taylor picks up 7 on the ground to extend the drive and make it a first down at the Jets 28-yard line. Their drive would stall though on the 24, and out would come Dan Carpenter to attempt a 42-yard field goal. It was up, it was good, and it was now 22-17 with just under 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter as Buffalo ate up about 7 minutes of game clock on this drive. So a huge drive for the Bills, although they come away with just 3 points. And now the Jets would take over on their own 20 after the touchback on the kickoff, down by 5, still within striking distance. And they would move up towards midfield. And on 3rd and 9 from the Jets' 45, the first play after the 2-minute warning, Ryan Fitzpatrick drops back, and he gets hit by Marcel Darius. He throws it at the same time, and Lawson comes down with it. Lawson intercepts Fitzpatrick. It's his second interception of the fourth quarter. And now Buffalo would take over with less than 2 minutes left in this game on their own 34. They would go 3 and out on the possession, and they would end up punting the ball back to the Jets with less than a minute left in this game. So now New York would take over after the punt on their own 18-yard line, needing 82 yards to make the postseason with less than a minute left on the clock. And on first down, Fitzpatrick scrambled for 9 yards, but the clock kept on moving. And so now on 2nd and 1, Fitzpatrick throws an incomplete pass as Tompkins was hit by Butler. Quite the play on that one, as he had the ball, but he knocked it loose. It went out of bounds. Incomplete pass. So now it was 3rd and 1 from the 27. Fitzpatrick drops back, and he's intercepted by Tarpley. And that's it. 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter with a chance to win it. And the Jets lose this game as Buffalo brings this one to a close with Tyrod Taylor taking a knee in the victory formation. And Buffalo is now even up their record at 8-8, 500 on the season, 5-3 at home. Rex Ryan knocks the Jets out of the playoffs, and Fitzpatrick, he does what we thought he would do. He did what we've been saying he would do, and that's really just looking at him in the past as when he was in Buffalo, when he was in Houston, what did he do? He would turn the ball over when it came down to those clutch moments. He's the anti-clutch, as we saw in this game, and he's not the reason why they got this far. He's the reason why they didn't make the playoffs. The Jets have an excellent team. They have a great coach in Todd Bowles. They have an awesome defense. Wilkerson had left the game in the first quarter. Like I said, Buffalo also had some injuries as well. But the Jets, as good as they are on defense, and they got a ton of talent on offense as well, the one position where they are weak is at quarterback. Fitzpatrick is a paper lion. He's not for real. The guy turns over the ball in the clutch moments, in crunch time. 3 interceptions in the fourth quarter. The Jets now 10-6 on the season. They just missed the playoffs. The Steelers won against Cleveland, so the Jets are done. And before the season, Incampale broke Geno Smith's jaw, and that really ruined their season. I think Geno Smith would have had a great year as quarterback with the Jets. And then in this game right here, Rex Ryan breaks the Jets' jaw by knocking them out of the playoffs with excellent defense by Buffalo. And Fitzpatrick, like I said, he throwing those interceptions as he's the anti-clutch. And this is what I expect from Fitzpatrick. I used to be a Fitzpatrick fan until I just saw him always just turning over the ball when the game was on the line, when it came down to it, when it was important, when it counted the most. He always folds under the pressure, and he does it here again, this time with the season on the line. And the Jets, an excellent team with a bright future ahead of them, especially with Todd Bowles as their coach and with the talent they have on both sides of the ball. The one thing they're missing is a quarterback. So for Jets fans, you can only hope that they do not stick with Ryan Fitzpatrick. He needs to go. But Tyrod Taylor, what a game by Tyrod Taylor, getting it done. He came up with the big plays when he needed to. And of course, the defense by Buffalo coming up big time in this game as well. Like I said, you did see, though, Carlos Williams did leave the game early. So did John Miller for Buffalo, and Wilkerson, as I said, for the Jets. But let's look at the stats for this game. Tyrod Taylor, 18-28, 182 passing yards. He also was the leading rusher for the Bills with 10 carries for 51 yards and that rushing touchdown. And Gillespie, he did have that fumble. He had 24 carries, just 28 yards for Gillespie on the ground. But they kept giving him the rock even though he wasn't producing. Carlos Williams had left the game earlier. He had 6 carries for 24 yards and that touchdown. And Sammy Watkins coming up huge in this one. He had almost all the receiving yards for the Bills as he had 11 catches for 136 yards for Sammy Watkins. Ryan Fitzpatrick in this game, the one that mattered the most, just 16 of 37. Very abysmal, under 50%, just 181 passing yards. He had the 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions, all in the fourth quarter, and with a chance to win too. First with it being a 2-point game, and then with it being a 5-point game, all interceptions were within striking distance, within 1 score of taking the lead in the fourth, and instead the pickoffs. Of course, the one there, he got hit by Marcel Darius, and I mean, hey, if I got hit by Marcel Darius, I wouldn't even be able to get rid of the ball. So, I mean, and he does try. I mean, Fitzpatrick, he put forth effort. I mean, you even saw after the couple of picks, he was running the ball, trying to get yards, trying to make up for it. But in the end, he just threw his 3rd interception. But Chris Ivory, just 6 carries, but 81 yards. And you got to wonder, why weren't they giving the rock to Chris Ivory more in this game? Why did they put it all on the arm of Fitzpatrick? But Brandon Marshall having another great game. He's had a great season. And the Jets actually, they had the most yards that they've ever had on offense in a season, as they broke the record from 1985. So they were very productive yards-wise. But Brandon Marshall, 8 receptions, 126 yards, and a touchdown. Eric Decker had 5 receptions for 50 yards and a touchdown as well. We look at the kickers in this game. Dan Carpenter, 3 for 3 on the field goals, 1 for 2 on the extra points. When he actually missed that extra point, he was pretty upset at himself. He threw his helmet on the ground. It bounced back up and hit him in the nose. Luckily for him, he didn't break his nose, though. But Randy Bullock, he was 1 for 2 on the field goals, 2 for 2 on the extra points. When we look at the defense for Buffalo, the 3 interceptions. McClevin had an interception, Lawson with an interception, and Tarpley with an interception. Super Mario had a sack. And for the Jets, Harris had 2 sacks. Harrison had a forced fumble. And Calvin Pace had a forced fumble as well. Then we look at the team stats. 18 first downs for the Bills, 15 for the Jets. On 3rd down, Buffalo 9 of 20, 45% conversion rate. On 4th down, they were 2 for 2, 100% on 4th down. And those 4th down conversions were huge for Buffalo. Those 2 4th down conversions, you can make the argument those were 2 of the most important plays in this game, other than those interceptions in the fourth quarter. Of course, that first time they converted on 4th down, it was for a touchdown. And when they converted again on 4th down, it kept their drive alive to get that field goal that put them up by 5, which would force the Jets to have to score a touchdown and not just be able to win it on a field goal. Is 2 points. They could have still won on a field goal. But on 3rd down for New York, 3 for 11, just 27%. We look at total net yards, 300 for the Jets, 295 for the Bills. On the ground, the Jets netted 122. They actually had 7.2 yards per rushing play. And again, you got to wonder, why were they passing the ball so much? Why were they putting it all in Fitzpatrick's hands? Why did they give it to the guy who's going to lose it? Why not hand off the ball? But you look at the rushing yards netted for the Bills, 113. And through the air, Buffalo netted 182. 2 sacks on Tyrod Taylor, but no yards lost on those sacks combined. And then we look at the net passing yards for the Jets, 178. Fitzpatrick sacked once for a loss of 3 yards. Penalties in this game, 6 against the Jets, 41 penalty yards. 4 against Buffalo for 45 penalty yards. So 2 less penalties, but 4 more penalty yards against the Bills. And Buffalo did have 2 fumbles. They recovered 1. They lost 1. Then we look at the red zone. Both teams 50%, but Buffalo 2 for 4. New York 1 for 2. And the time of possession was the real huge difference in this game. 39 minutes and 13 seconds for Buffalo. Just 20 minutes and 47 seconds for New York. As Buffalo, they weren't getting a lot of production out of their ground game, but they just kept on pounding it. They ended up with just 9 less yards on the ground, but they kept on pounding it, even though they weren't necessarily getting the yards, but they were getting the time of possession. They kept the clock moving. They kept their drives extended by keeping that clock rolling. Even if you're not getting yards on the ground, you got to run the ball to keep that clock moving. Whereas the Jets, they just abandoned their running game. They put it all on Fitzpatrick, and that's a recipe for disaster. Fitzpatrick, as we've seen time and time again with team after team, when it comes crunch time, when it comes those clutch moments, he's the anti-clutch. He will turn the ball over on down. He will lose the game. That's who Ryan Fitzpatrick is. They say when Houston, they had a great defense. They had J.J. Watt. And he was doing that over there. Why would it be any different in New York? Yes, the Jets have an amazing cast around them. Their receiving core is nuts with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. Then you got, Chris Ivory. Powell was, of course, injured and didn't suit up in the backfield, and that's probably part of why they didn't really run the ball too much in this game. But all year long, he's had the supporting cast, and their defense of the Jets is amazing. They had a good season overall, 10-6, but a huge win for Buffalo, 8-8, and this was kind of like the Bills' Super Bowl. They got a chance in Week 17 to knock the Jets out, and that's got to make Rex happy. And so it'll be interesting to see how things go in the offseason for these two teams. But as for this game, the Buffalo Bills come away with a huge victory. But let me know what you think in the comments section below, whether you agree or disagree. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a great week and having a great weekend and had a happy new year and a happy holidays and are enjoying all the sports.